Let's bring back in our guest to help us answer this question. We have psychotherapist and CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, Dr. Janie Lacey, and former judge Tarlika Nunez-Navarro is with us. She's also the dean of St. Thomas University College of Law. Dr. Lacey, let's try to answer that question. Based on what we saw the day before, what's standing out to you about Courtney Clenney's mental state?
Well, a couple things. If I was to, Julia, put it in two buckets, if I'm looking at it from a defense perspective, for one, sometimes when we see not only the clip that you just saw where she was as the victim and she feared for her safety, she wanted to request a restraining order. And then I believe in reported prior abuse that she believes that there were some pictures of being choked or pictures that were consistent, I should say, with being choked or pushed. But when we look at a trauma response theory, right, in relationships with intimate partner violence, victims sometimes can develop hypervigilant and threat detection is what we would call it, and they react with disproportionate force when triggered. So when we think about potentially if she was the victim of domestic violence, and let's go with her theory that, Christian was the aggressor, then we would kind of look at some of that trauma response psychology when it comes to domestic violence, because when we look at people that have trauma bonding and they stay in these toxic relationships that go back and forth. So the question that I would be analyzing is it truly a battered woman syndrome, as you mentioned in the previous segment, or is it truly just the dynamics of an intimate partner toxic dynamic? So there's a couple of things that I would have to break down even further to see if it was a true mutual intimate partner violence situation or if Courtney was a true domestic violence victim.
Tarlika, when you're looking at this and listening to how Courtney Clenney sounds, even when she's interacting with police, what's your analysis of whether or not she should testify in a case like this? Does she have to testify?
Well, if we're looking at a self-defense claim, they are going to have to put her on the stand, and the jury's going to want to hear from her, and they're going to want to assess her credibility, and they're going to be matching it against the behavior that they see in those videos and in her interview. So yes, if they're going to be successful in a self-defense claim, they're going to have to put their defendant on the stand.
And Tarlika, I do want to show you something that comes from an actual filing in this case. This is in the civil trial, but it mentioned something about what Courtney Clenney was dealing with when this was all happening. This was a few days before. And she actually, according to this motion, sent an email to the manager of the apartment complex where she lived. They had been threatening to evict her because of all of the problems they've been having. And she told them that she had been recently diagnosed with a severe borderline personality disorder and had begun taking medication to address her disorder. She also advised that the medication should take effect after a month or so. This stabbing happened before that. Dr. Lacey, actually, let me get you to weigh in on knowing that information about Courtney Clenney.
Yeah, so when I think about a clinical assessment perspective, that would matter in the sense of, did she truly have a pre-existing mental health condition beyond her PTSD and her substance abuse? And then that would also take into place what she was doing. Was there, in the toxicology reports, for example, from the day of the incident, was she having the substances or the medications in her system, or was this recreational use? And then we would also consider just, her trauma history, including any childhood experiences. And we would want to consider the pattern of analysis of even who initiated the violence and the documented incidences. And, we'd look at all of those types of things, because there, I would say that her mental state at the time of Christian's death, to me would appear severely compromised by those multiple factors that you just introduced. Was there untreated trauma, substance abuse? Was there any type of mutually toxic relationships and acute psychological distress as a result of her diagnosis?
A lot for this jury to digest when the time comes. Dr. Lacey and Tarlika, thank you so much for weighing in and hanging with us.